Okay, Aggies, here we are for the Week 7 test. And remember, going over this test has a couple of benefits for you. Benefit number one, you get to check the work that you did so you can see what kind of mistakes you made. Benefit number two, you get used to these kinds of questions because both Concept 7 and Concept 6 will show up again on the Week 8 test, which is going to happen on Tuesday. So here we go. Madison bought a new smartphone on sale for $20 off the regular price, 20% off the regular price. She paid an 8% sales tax on the discounted price. So a couple things that we want to make sure we understand there. Thing number one is it's 20% off the regular price of the phone. The regular price is $160. Thing number two, when we get to the sales tax is on the discounted price of the phone. So the sales tax will not be on the $160 because the discounted price of the phone will be less than that. So let's change our percentages into decimals first. That's one thing we always go through and do when we see a percent. Make it into a decimal. Do that early so you have them down. And now we're ready to begin. So we're going to start by taking the $160, that's the regular price of the phone, and we're going to multiply that by the discount, by the 0.2. Remember, we don't need this zero. It's not a placeholder, so I'm just going to write it down as 0.2. And when I do that work, let me break out my calculator here. 160, oops, I got too many zeros, got to be careful. 160 times 0.2, $32. So I get $32. That $32 is the discount. That's how much I'm saving on the phone. Not what I'm paying, and not the discounted price, but the discount, the savings. So discount, or you might think of it as savings. Somebody says to Madison, how much did you save when you bought the phone on sale? Madison would say, I saved $32. So $32 discount. All right, let's go then and figure out what did Madison actually have as her sale price. Well, the $160, that's the normal price, minus the $32, that's the discount. She ends up at $128, and that is the discounted price. That's what the tax is going to be charged on, that discounted price of $128. So then the next step is to take that discounted price, take that $128, and multiply it by the sales tax, by the 8%. Remember to have that zero. That zero does mean something. It's a placeholder. It has to be there. So let me get rid of that arrow. And we're going to take the $128, multiply that by the 8%, and that gives us $10.24. And that is the amount of sales tax, $10.24. Then the final step, and we know that tax gets added back in, discounts get subtracted, tax gets added. So we take our $128, we have to add in the tax that the phone company is collecting to give to the government, and we get $138.24. And that is our final answer. That's Madison's final cost. She walks out of the store, looks at her credit card receipt to see what they charged to her Black American Express card or her Discover card, whatever it happens to be, and she's going to see that what they charged was $138.24. You could also set this problem up, if you had wanted to, you could have set this problem up as how much does she pay? Remember, if Madison, if she saves 20%, then she pays 80%. If you save 20, you pay 80. So you could have set this problem up and done the 160 times 0.8 times 0.8 And let's see, I have to do that actually times 0.8. 160 times 0.8. And that gives me $128. So if I multiplied by the 0.8, by the amount she paid, not the amount she saved, I would get the 128. And you'll notice that 128 is the same as that 128. Multiplying by what she pays, you get to include both the find the discount and find the sale price in the same step. All right, let's move on. Problem number 2. Let's get our calculator out of the way for right now. Alex puts $1,100 in a savings account. So if he's putting that money into a savings account, that represents his principal. We've talked in class about the fact that principal is what you put in the bank. He has a 3% interest rate, and he's keeping the money for 4 years. And we're going to put that into the formula, which is principal times rate times time to equal interest. If you want to know how much interest you're going to earn, it's the principal times the rate times the time. In this case, it is 1,100 times the 0.03 times the 4 years. Now, when you're multiplying, you can only multiply 2 things at a time. So we have to multiply the 1,100 times the 3% interest, and that gives us $33. That is our interest for 1 year, and then we have to multiply that by the 4 to get our total interest, and the $33 times the 4 gives us our total of $132. That is the interest. Get my calculator out of the way again. That is the interest from savings, $132. Remember, this $33, that was interest for 1 year of savings. Not to be confused with the 132, which is the total interest. Okay, so at the end of the 4 years, Alex takes his money out and he walks it over to the Marks Fund. So at the end of the year, at the end of the 4 years, he takes the savings plus the interest and he invests it in the Marks Fund that yields 4.5%. So he's going to take that money out and he's going to put it into an account that yields 4.5, 0.045. So when he's putting it in, remember, he's taking all the money out, which means he's taking out the principal, 1,100, plus the interest, 132. So he takes all of that money out, and that totals $1,232. That's the new principal. That's the amount of money that he's putting into the Marks Fund. So he takes that $1,132, $1,232. He multiplies that by the 4.5% interest times 1 year. So there's our same formula, principal times rate times time, and that's going to give him the interest that he gets from the Marks Fund. So let's pull out the calculator again and take the 1,232 and multiply that by the 4.5%, and that gives us $54 or $55, excuse me, and 44 cents. $55.44 times the 1 year, and that's going to stay $55.44. And that is the interest that he earns from the Marks Fund, $55.44. Then the final step, what's the total? So he's going to take the money out now. He's taking all the money out of the account. He's coming back in. It's the end of that year. And how much did he have left after he receives his interest and principal from the Marks Fund? What's in the account? Well, what's in the account is the $1,232 that he put in. That was his principal right here. That was his new principal, plus the $55.44 that he earned for the 1 year's worth of interest in the Marks Fund. So altogether, when he takes that money out, he is going to take out $1,287.44. So $1,287.44. And that is our final answer to problem number 2. All right, on to the last part of the test here. So number 3, 65% of 20. That one's pretty straightforward. We take the 65%, we switch it into a decimal. 0.65 of means multiply, so 0.65 times 20 has a value of 13. That is the answer to number 3. Number 4, Mr. Smith has 17 boys and 8 girls in his homeroom. What percent of the homeroom students are boys? So we always have to make sure we know what the question is. What percent of the students are boys? That tells us how to do the setup for the problem. So the setup for this problem is going to be the total number of students. Excuse me. Let me start. It's going to be the boys over the total number of students, which in this case is 17 over 25, because we have 17 boys and 8 girls, which means we have 25 students altogether. So 17 over 25, that shows division. So whenever we see a fraction like that, this is what's happening. 17 divided by 25. And 17 divided by 25 is 0.68. And the question was what percent, so that has to be changed into a percent. 0.68 is the same as 68%. Final problem, final, bottom of the page. This one doesn't count for any points, but it helps you see if you're reading these problems correctly. So Jason bought a coat that was 20% off the original and another 50% off the discounted. Since the percentages are off two different things, one's off the original, one's off the discount, you cannot add them together. You can't add them together and say, let's take 70% off the price of the coat. It doesn't work that way. We have to do them separately. So the first thing we have to do is we have to take the $85 and we have to multiply it by the 20% savings off the original price. So when we take 85 times the 20%, we get $17. That $17 is the savings. So we have to take the $85 coat. We have to subtract the $17 savings. That gives us $68. That $68 is the discounted price. And then we're going to take 50% off that, And several of you have correctly said, oh, if you're taking 50% off something, you can just divide it in 2. That's correct. 50% off is the same as dividing by 2. We divide that by 2, and we get a final price of the coat, $34. So there you go, the Week 7 test. Do some studying on this test. Take a look at it against your own test. You'll see similar problems to problems 6, sections 6 and 7 on the next test. Okay, if you have any questions, be sure to ask.